All right, welcome back, the virtual audience, switching over from our first technically in-person event in over 2 years. So this was our first hybrid event, hopefully of many. And yeah, so we're kicking off the first virtual talk of the day. We've got 5 talks total, but this panel is transforming sales coaching in a remote work environment. Moderating this panel, we have Jason Oates, Chief Business Officer and co-founder at Live Intent. So I'll pass it over to you, Jason.
Great. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate it. And thank you for everybody in the audience for joining us today. Today I've got Sean and Russell with me, and we've done a great prep, and I'm really excited about the topics we're talking about today. We're talking about coaching in a world where people are actually living remotely. That's what the focus of this panel is going to be on. Again, my name is Jason Oates. I'm Chief Business Officer, co-founder of Live Intent. Live Intent is a people-based marketing platform that reaches about 220 million people in North America as they consume email newsletters, alerts, and announcements that are actually sent by over 2,000 brands and publishers. So said another way, we're the only programmatic media buying company that actually only serves ads in email, leveraging first-party data rather than cookies. In terms of my job, I oversee sales development. I run and manage and evolve the sales development team, build new products, bring those to market, and also do a lot of public speaking like this. Sean, love to hear from you.
Sure.
Next, let's do some intros.
Sure. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, my name's Sean Murphy. I'm our EVP of Inside Sales at Revenue Grid, and for us, that includes our business development, our lead generation team, and then our S&B sales team. And I joined a couple months ago. Previously, I was with Fiserv, and I'd say almost all of my career has been about building inside sales teams. That includes sales, business development, lead generation, that whole gamut, marketing automation at times. So yeah, looking forward to having the conversation today. As far as Revenue Grid, we're a revenue intelligence platform. We try and help take all of your communication channels and make it actionable inside your pipeline. We'll talk some about it, later. I'll bring up some points, but some guided selling, coaching that we can provide for the managers, but also things that the rep can take action on based on what's going on in their email, other alerts that may happen in their environment.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Russell?
Thanks, Jason. And looking forward to participating in this. I'm Russell Zack. I'm the head of revenue at Second Nature. I've been working as a head of revenue and helping build sales teams and sales organizations at a variety of different early stage and mid stage startups in my career. I've been doing a lot of it both internationally as well as in New York. And Second Nature, this is a very relevant topic. We are a sales simulation application, and what we allow salespeople and revenue team members to do is practice virtual conversations with a virtual persona that's defined by the client, a whole variety of different prospect personas, so they can practice in a safe space and get analysis in terms of areas in order to how to become more proficient in their pitches. And then allows the sales managers to see different areas of where the team across the board may need some help. So for example, using data from Sean's company, which happens in the field, you could then look to have people do some more practices, get better before they go back in the field. And we work with a variety of large technology companies as customers, as well as financial services.
That's great. We'll go deep. We'll go much deeper into that as we talk about tools and things that we can do to get people up to speed and help by coaching. I first want to start with, like, in 2020, we all had great, well-laid plans. We all had a plan, then we got punched in the face by COVID, the pandemic, and one of the major issues was our own bias, like. Like I was always saying that having a sales team, or especially sales development reps who are fairly young, new to an industry, that working from home was like a no-no. I just really didn't think I could do it, and I didn't think they could do it. And I was wrong. So my first question is, like, what was your perspective on having salespeople work remotely prior to the pandemic versus post the pandemic?
Yeah, I'll jump in quickly. We had already started a couple days for some of the teams, a couple days a month where they could be remote. And we were adding into that process prior to this. So we'd already talked about what that might mean for us from a coaching perspective, what that might mean from a going forward. So it was on our mind, but obviously not to the extent that ended up happening. And I agree with you, Jason. I think the biggest change really was for us as the leaders and managers on where we were spending our time. As I've said, most of my time has been with inside folks, so I could literally walk around and see my team all the time. And that's the part I missed, those spontaneous conversations, those just communicating, connecting with people. That was the part I missed, right away was, wow, I need to feel like I need to schedule a meeting now rather than just walk over to someone's desk, or walk in and try and get it's hard to schedule. Let's be spontaneous at 9:00 today. Right. So much of that happens in the inside world. You're just sitting there together and talking. So I agree. I think the biggest change really was for me, and I needed to be more purposeful in my day and scheduling my time and scheduling time with the team.
You brought up that idea of tapping someone or walking up to somebody. I think I was a major disruptor within the company because I, fairly ADHD, and I've got a lot going on in my head and a lot of people that I interact with throughout the company, and might be a godsend that like I'm not around disrupting people's flows. So
sure,
and I would get interrupted on a regular basis. Sometimes,
sure.
Not sometimes, pretty much on a regular basis.
Yep.
And so, there's some benefits to not actually constantly being interrupted and being able to actually really singularly focus on one task at a time.
Sure.
I find working from home.
Yep.
And I can see, Jason, what you mentioned, which is that, productivity measures were that when people are remote, actually productivity hasn't decreased versus being in person. And that's possibly because they got back the 25 minutes where when they had to context switch, you took them out, right? You say, okay. Now I can divide up the conversation, my time better and really, compartmentalize it. One thing, Shawnee, you mentioned, is not only being in the office, but I always enjoyed being out in the field with the team because that was a huge learning experience.
Sure.
The ride-alongs and you get to see the pitch in person and you get the side conversation in person, and obviously that went away. Now you have to fill it with chat and maybe a quick, let's get on a video call. But it doesn't take the place of in person.
True.
Yeah. And did you also have some bias, pre-pandemic of like, all right, this would be really tough to manage an entire team or all the sales teams and sales development process remotely? Did you have any bias that you went in with?
I had bias, especially locally, because being in a big metropolitan area, so I'm based in the New York City area, is great to get people together. But for me personally, as a manager, I've been managing international teams across different time zones for a while. So pretty used to what does remote management look like. And I've been a big champion of video, great video conferencing to be able to have a real meeting quality perspective for a long time. So, and one of the things that I've been amazed with is when something happens globally so quickly, the innovation that takes place and how great all the tools have become, even in the last 24 months, has been incredible. The speed of innovation has been amazing.
Yep, I would agree.
Something that popped in my head was one of the things we've not been good at prior to the pandemic is we had salespeople remotely, and we have tried this over and over again in the last 12 years. And I really do feel like we failed those people over and over again. There were so many side conversations and huddled with the team. We're going to get everyone together, but we forgot to call Bob in LA again. Bob feels like he's outside of us now. He's not feeling part of the conversation. We put notes on the wall, be like, don't forget to call Bob, or like whatever it was. Didn't work. Now these sidebars happen with everybody when we do have those chances, but also we do a lot of stand-ups, for younger teams like morning and night. So we do get everyone together and huddle and talk about our experiences. And that's something that's been super helpful on our part. this panel is called Transforming Sales Coaching in a Remote Environment. I'm curious, how is this going to play out post pandemic? Are you guys going to go 100% in office, or are you actually going to embrace that, some in the office, some out? What's it going to look like over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think for us, and what I'm hearing from a lot of my peers is it's going to be a hybrid. And I think that even the reps now, I think initially, there was a lot of excitement about being remote for them. But I think over time they realized they missed that camaraderie. And again, this is a, inside kind of focused piece where they were used to seeing each other. And so now, they started to get to the idea of, hey, we're in the office 1 to 2 days a week. And that they're seeing value in that. And I think that's likely to continue. I think the challenge that we've taken ourselves as a leadership team is to make those days purposeful. And we really try and schedule that time. Let's make sure, let's not just bring people in to bring them in, which I think a few of us have tried and realized that was kind of a mistake. You're half the team's on a call like this and half the team's in their cube. That wasn't very productive. So we, kind of focused on purposeful. Let's do the training. Let's do the collaboration. Let's get our product training or our sales training in. Let's do some of the brainstorming on new messaging, those kind of things where it's sometimes tough to do remote. You can do all of that, but it's sometimes better to be able to whiteboard things and have people in the room and get that done. And, we even went so far as to talk about if that's not a full 8-hour day, traditional day, and we can get that done in 4 or 5 hours, mission accomplished. And the reps are appreciating that. Again, I'll go back to, I think the theme you'll hear a lot from us today is that puts the pressure on us, right? To make sure we're thinking through, how do we use that time wisely? How do we make sure that's a productive use of their time to commute or drive or come in? And I think when the team sees that, they're appreciating that. They're kind of looking forward to those days now. And I think for managers, we're not just having meetings to have meetings, right? We're not just going through the motions of, hey, let's just meet today because that's what we've always done. So definitely more work, for me and for my managers on what are we going to do next Wednesday, in our team session? Like, who can we bring in? Can we do some product training? What do we need to do?
And then also beyond the work stuff, and you brought it up, like make it a shared experiential, experience. So you're really having something outside of work, whether it's gameplay, happy hour, maybe something beyond just sitting around drinking together, but add something else where you're getting to know a little bit about someone, a little karaoke session, maybe even in the office or gameplay, something that's actually outside of work, because that taps in a different part of the brain and makes other connections with people.
Agreed. Yeah.
Jason, I want you to plan our get together.
Sounds fun.
And what John says, I totally agree with, which is much more focused on time together with a purpose and specifically scheduled. And I think that one of the things, so just to add to those 2 points, we at Second Nature have a challenge in being an early stage startup, which is the war for talent. Mm-hmm. And for us, for a recruiting purpose, I learned very quickly, if I've got only a specific region with people in the office, I've all of a sudden, my market is really gotten a lot smaller now. And what we ask team members is, now that they're familiar with the tools, more pre-preparation before you come in person. Use the recordings, record the video, record some background. Hey, everyone, I know we're going to be meeting about this topic in person. Let me tell you about my perspective. No, I don't think we should be doing this. So more prep materials delivered by all the different individuals who are going to be participating in the meeting, using what they have from the remote perspective.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I like that. And I also think that, going back to this concept of, I think that people leave companies and managers, not jobs. I think that if you're in an environment and in a company that cares about you and your role, but also a vision of where that role could lead, they want to be there. They want to be there, not just for the job, but there's things that you can do. People are wanting to join companies, not just for the roles they're going in, but because the culture of the company, and they believe, and there's some sort of purpose there. And I think that's another really big piece of it, which is hard to do. But early stage, that's going to attract certain types of people, and then to understand what types of people can actually be in an early stage company. Someone that actually is comfortable with ambiguity, someone that's comfortable doing multiple jobs, someone that's very comfortable with like change and lots of change. But if you take someone who loves big structure or a big company and put them in a small company, it's not going to work. So just knowing who you are and then letting that out there so you attract the right people could be really important.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good point, Russell. I think and Jason, as we started thinking about our hiring in 2021, realizing we were in this hybrid, that led to some different questions, about do you have a workspace? Like, are you comfortable? Do you need to be in the office? Like, be careful how you structure that, but you needed to add that to your interview process to make sure, because some of the reps I've worked with, they like and need that structure, right? They need to come in and they work better in that environment of being in the office. And so if you're not going to have that option for them, that's going to be a struggle, right? We didn't have not everybody's productivity improved being remote, right? We had a few folks that struggled and needed that structure for whatever reason, just their DNA. And so, that changed some of our interview questions and who we're bringing on board, that they need to have that. They not only need to, but want that flexibility in that hybrid work environment.
Yep. That's really great. Going back to the title, it's really around coaching, not management. And so I think a good question here is, what's the difference between management and coaching? So managing versus coaching. What do you guys think?
So we, obviously this is second nature space, and I understand, best practices, and we look to deliver experiences where the sales managers know in advance where are areas that require coaching. But it's really three areas, which is when you're coaching, you need to be specific about the delineation of time. This time is for coaching. Jason, I'm not going to talk to you about your pipeline, right? This is we could talk about all of the ways in which, to improve. The second is, it's like discovery in a sales call, right? When you're coaching a rep, you have to ask them the questions. You have to find out. You have to let them think about it, right? And it's not it's, tell me why you think you're having trouble with your prospecting, right? Not, you're having trouble with your prospecting. Let's talk, right? And then, and
not hitting your numbers versus let's focus on the process, not the outcome.
And the final is also the use of examples, which is, oh, hey, look at Sean. Look at how good he is in this recording with the pitch. It's not about that. It's saying, hey, everyone, hey, take a look at this. What do you think is effective about this approach? Yeah. And you really look for the person to bring it out. Like David Geffen, famous music industry mogul, always said, the way in which he coached his people was to ask them the questions when they came to him with a problem. Yeah. And that's key.
Sure. Yeah. I'm in agreement. I also think of management as almost along the lines of kind of strategy. Like, where are we going? You're trying to shift change across a broad team, guidance, whatever it might be. Hey, let's go after this vertical, this industry. We're going to do these steps moving forward. And I think of coaching as one-to-one, right? And development and working on that person. It could be trying to help them improve their process. It could be soft skills. So I at least in my mind, differentiate the two a little bit. I think of management as maybe across a department, across a team. Coaching is more one-to-one, more tactical, more real-time, some actions that they can take, right after they get off the call with you or during the call with you, depending on what platforms you're using.
Yeah, and Russell, I like what you were saying there about actually setting up time for management. We're going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk about that progress. We're going to talk about attainment. We're going to look at your activity numbers. That really is by the numbers, by the book. And I think that there needs to be a time for that. People need to know where they stand against their goals and how those goals are. And I think that's really important. That coaching hat, that's the guide to motivate, to assess, to influence, to help critical thinking, to not give people answers, but teach them how to actually find the answer, teach them how to come up with the response, not write the response for them. I think a lot of managers just be like, do this. Oh, here you are. It's very prescriptive sometimes. And so some managers need to be taught how to coach. Some coaches need to learn how to manage. And sometimes there might be two different people within an organization.
Sure.
Specifically that, which is humans are naturally biased. So as much as I'm saying, oh, I've got to follow my own, rules, I still want to know, why isn't Jason, I start leaning towards the specifics. So I do agree, in some cases, you have to separate the two roles and between different individuals.
Yeah. So one of the concepts that we talked about in our prep was, what are you doing to develop team cohesion, and camaraderie, so people feel like they're part of a sales org, but then also that they're connected to the rest of the organization. Like, it's very easy to like, I'm on sales meetings and sales calls, it's all about sales. Like, what about new product development? What about connecting to the marketing team, the product marketing team? So what are you guys doing to build team cohesion and culture?
Yeah, so early, I'll go back in time a little bit. Early process was, most of those early meetings were just checking in with individuals, just trying to connect as a human, right? As a person to them. How are you doing? Are you stressed? Is something going on with your family? And I would say for the first few months, that was a big part of our meetings. It wasn't as much work related. If there were work related things coming up, it was the second half of the meeting, the last third of the meeting. But initially, it was just trying to make sure everyone was okay, right? This was a big shift and a lot of stuff going on in the news. Everyone handled it differently. And so I think for us, really talking to our management team as well, of let's make sure we're checking in. And there were some of my teams took it to the extreme where they had check-ins every day, just 15 minutes. How's everybody doing? What's going on? Everybody safe, everybody healthy, and I think that helped keep people connected. That took that place of those meetings that happen when you first walk in and sit down at a cube and grab your coffee and do all that stuff. So it was again, we'll go back to being purposeful. It was by design. And, again, back to us rethinking what do we need to do as leaders and managers. And that was the first piece, was just connect that group, individually. And then as time went on, we started to invite more of those other departments, as you mentioned, Jason, to our team meetings. Again, we were fortunate to have some of those folks in-house at the time, where they could come walk down and meet with us. So we try to keep that going, right? And get our business partners involved, have them join the meeting. So we're still getting that face time, not just relying on email or a Teams chat. That's effective. It's a great resource to go back and look at it afterwards. But you need, at least, our view was, we need that interaction. We want to hear from folks. We want to see folks, have them pop up on cameras. That was another big push, right? I'm sure you guys it's probably common. Our initial teams, very few people on camera, right? So, we had to take the initiative to jump on camera, be ready, be camera ready as it were, and try and encourage that, because that made a big difference, just inside of our company. I met people inside of my company that I hadn't met virtually before, right? We were just on conference calls all the time. So, that helped a lot, just seeing people on camera.
We went, Sean, you mentioned purposeful, and we have been very specific about separating, even with the tools that we use for social, like we use WhatsApp,
Sure.
the Second Nature social club, which is only for social, and we use Slack for work. So we don't even make a social channel in Slack. Creation in order to create a bonding. People know, okay, this tool is for that. That tool is so not even on a channel basis. And the other thing that we have really been promoting heavily is sharing best practices in things that have been successful. And it's amazing to me what comes through from a standpoint of personality, and that also creates like this indirect bond with people for it. So that is some of the ways in which we're seeing cultural increase, because our team is very remote. So yeah.
The few things that we're doing is, one, we do a town hall every other week on Tuesdays. So everybody throughout the whole world does tune in at that time. We rotate through different departments. We'll present. We go through all the numbers. We're fully transparent about exactly where the business is. Each department will do their own like monthly wrap-ups, like business intelligence. The whole company is invited to their once a month presentation. They really do some deep dives into things that are actually really interesting, and it's a good way of bringing everyone together. These all hands, we introduce all the new employees, and we also, take time to talk about, diversity, equity, inclusion. We bring in outside experts to talk about specific subjects that might be helpful to people. And then we've got ERGs, email resource groups. So we've got Pride Intent, we've got neurodiversity at Live Intent, we've got Black Intent, Pride Intent. So this brings people together from multiple different groups and they get to know each other. So that's actually been really super helpful. We could only do that when we got big enough to do something like that.
Yep.
I think it'd be hard in a really small company maybe to do something like that. But then bring in, and we have parents and caregivers. So we bring in outside experts to talk to these communities within Live Intent. I think that definitely has been a cultural boom for us and been very helpful in recruiting.
Sure.
Oh, that's great, Jason. The bringing in the experts outside to make it. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and each group's got its treasurer and leaders and stuff like that. But those outside influences help train kind of the people that are leading the ERG, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah. Similar to that group, we had created like an employee group to help with our culture. Unfortunately, we had a temporary name, Culture Club, and that stuck. So I had to explain to some of my reps why I didn't really like that name, but it worked because it put the put the responsibility back on them. They helped with new hires. They helped to kind of share best practices, but they also helped to arrange a lot of events. Once we could go back and do some events, but even in the meantime, that was a different group. I didn't think about Russell, what you said about having a different channel to communicate. That I think that would have helped kind of separate out that piece of it, because that was one concern I know we're going to talk about later, was the culture. Like how do you keep the culture going, especially when you're used to seeing each other all the time. I know for a lot of leaders that was a big concern for us, but this Culture Club helped us kind of keep that going. And they owned that, right? And they would come back to us with suggestions, recommendations. What did they need help with? Right? What were the important things? And sometimes you were surprised, right? Sometimes it was, monitors and keyboards and desk stuff. Maybe not a surprise for some groups, but I didn't think about that initially. So but they were the voice. If someone was kind of quiet, this Culture Club would come back and give us feedback.
So next, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into how we're empowering people, how we're helping them to grow within the organization, treating them as individuals and not, trying to treat everyone the same, because I think that's really important, is getting to know them and aiding them through the whole process. Let's go a little bit into onboarding and training remotely, which can be tricky.
Sure.
Talk to me a little bit about what you're doing in terms of onboarding and training and how that changed.
Yeah, with us, we really needed to provide much more information about the backgrounds of the individuals before the onboarding happened, which is this individual. Here's where they're located. Be wary of the time zone. From a timing perspective, and this is who you need to, this is kind of the subject you need to talk about with them, and their role. So much more specific around each one of the areas for onboarding, and then seen a lot more prep material. Look at these documents, be prepared for the conversation. So a lot more use of some of the online tools to get people onboarded in a remote environment, and formal introductions. Because when you're in an office, you walk by, like you said, Jason, hey, I'm Russ, I'm the new guy, right? But you need to make it much more formal. Hey, this person joined, this is what they're doing, post it to the channels and make them feel welcome. And I know there's small things, but the little digital, emojis and the digital confetti, it's
good.
Something, right?
Make people smile.
Yeah. Some of it, we'll go back to some of the office stuff. Some of the biggest feedback we got was making sure they had their supplies that they needed. I see some of those posts on LinkedIn as well, but so just starts off with a great impression. If before their start date, they've got their equipment, they've got some company swag, where they feel like, they're part of something, and that, it's not a surprise that they're joining. So I think it starts, before they come on board, having that kind of organized and making sure you're getting stuff to their home, they've got something to be excited about, get them some of the documentation you talked about. I think sharing some of that before they start, depending on your NDA and those type of things, is very helpful. Let them get up to speed. I think the other piece we've noticed is while our normal onboarding of people were in person, let's say was 2 to 3 weeks, I think it's taking longer to bring people on board. It's tougher to absorb that because you don't have as easy an ability to go validate some of your questions, or you feel like maybe I need to wait before I've got a meeting tomorrow, I'll wait and ask my question, where if you were in person, you might do that real time. So we started to add in some kind of refresh. Let's recap what we've done over the last couple of weeks, because it's a lot of information when you're new, you come on board and now you're sitting, somewhere remote trying to absorb all that. Doesn't really make sense for a couple of weeks. So it's just taken us longer. We've had to be a little bit more patient, check in with them more often. Again, it goes back to, the common theme we've talked about. It's more pressure, I think, on the managers to go validate that they're going through those steps, but that it makes sense, and that, give them time to absorb it, because it's a lot to take in when you're new.
It really is. I tend to hire in sales development teams in groups, like 6 people at a time.
Yep.
And I give them a syllabus. It's a 3 months, like it breaks down by week or phases, because sometimes people learn faster than others or whatever. But that way they see, like, what's the learning objective? What am I going to learn week 1? What are the things I'm going to learn and get exposed to week 2, week 3, something like that. And then the why, and then resources that they can actually go back to and refer to.
Yep.
But then meeting people where they are. Like I do a lot of face-to-face training, and then, maybe they'll read something and then they do a lessonly or now it's in HighSpot, but we use an LMS system to then take them through like a lesson where they can get scored. And then if they get an 80, then they've passed that course. So in person, maybe some reading, and then some sort of LMS system to reinforce everything that they're learning.
Yep.
I think and then the getting to know you. Some people we use assessments, we use PI, but there's a bunch of other assessments. So you can actually get a good personality reading on the person coming in.
Sure.
That okay, this person's really analytical, but super impatient and not social at all.
Yep.
Let's make sure that we don't put them on stage like week 1 to introduce themselves. Like, so meeting people where they are in terms of how they approach learning, but also kind of who they are. So we're not tripping all their triggers.
Sure.
I have two things to add. I think, Sean, what you said around getting the swag in advance of starting is huge, because you see on LinkedIn how proud someone is.
Sure.
Hey, look at this wonderful stuff I just got as part of I love this company. It was really nice. And Jason, what you mentioned, one of the things around remote that we've seen with kind of the use of second nature is how people really like practicing before they get their formal assessment, maybe with a person in a safe space. And it is important to give them the tools so that they can get up to speed and say, okay, now I'm ready. Now I think I'm ready. Before someone says, well, you're going to throw this person right in front of a bunch of role plays with humans. And they're like, okay. So I think that's important.
I like that aspect of your technology, that they can do it in the safety of their own home, a judgment-free zone to some degree, where they can get some practice before they get in front of a bunch of people. I think that some people are fine with getting in front of a lot of people, but a lot of people aren't.
Yeah.
So I can see how important that would be. I do have a question from Jennifer. So Jennifer says, how have you your recognition, celebration, incentive programs to motivate your sales teams evolved? What activities are you finding to be effective now, particularly with small sales teams?
Yeah. I think to add what was really what was mentioned earlier by Sean is you have to be much more overt around focusing on who was successful and how they were successful, and distribute that information appropriately. Because you used to be able to say, okay, everyone's getting in a sales call. Hey, Russ is doing great. Way to go, Russ. Everyone's like, yeah, but here you've got a diverse remote team. You've got to say, okay, I got to make sure that this is what happened. This is why. And people understand why this person was successful. Oh, great. This is was really effective from that standpoint. And it's not the big things, it's the little things. And we always knew that, but I think it's become even more clear, even a chat message. Hey, wow, you really impressed me. in that meeting, or wow, that was amazing, or even inside the chat room, call it out for Jason.
High five people.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree that last part, Russell. I think, Jennifer, we didn't make any significant changes, but what we did try and do was over communicate the activities and things that we wanted to reward. I think, Jason, you mentioned your town halls. We started to include a lot more of our activities that the reps were doing in our town halls, which we hadn't done previously, sharing number of calls, reply rates, open rates, those types of things. As a form of recognition, right? Besides just showing what closed or who built the most pipeline, was also trying to show how people are getting there, because that was some of the questions that we were getting from folks is, how's Fred being so successful, and why is Russell struggling, and all those types of things. So we shared their activity information, as a way to kind of create some recognition, and definitely agree with the in meeting high fives and recognition, and trying to acknowledge people doing a good job. Again, those things you would have done if you're just walking around, but giving some people some public praise. But we didn't really change our incentive programs or add anything different from that point of view.
We brought in sales contests. So we have annual, and sometimes quarterly, sales contests. We just did the, the 2021, and it's not just sales. It's the account teams, it's the account management teams, it's the salespeople, and so someone takes the legacy accounts and they're growing legacy, and they're cross-selling and upselling and doing certain things. So we're rewarding people, and a lot of different people throughout the organization, with meaningful, end of the year gifts. Like, these are really important, and people are very proud of what they've achieved. And then we have new initiatives. We're launching something new. It's like, okay, like, whoever gets the most first meetings for this new product in this quarter is going to get a meaningful, gift. And so just trying to find how do you incentivize the real behaviors you really want to change, and then talk about it on a regular basis, and have a leaderboard so people can kind of see where they're at. If you can't see where you're at, it doesn't exist. It's not important.
Yep, agreed.
There's another question. How do you track initiatives aside from just monitoring pipelines?
Yeah, well, for us, revenue grid from a plug perspective, similar to Russell earlier. I mean, we're able to see emails that are going back and forth. We're able to see are the reps taking the right step in the sales playbook and the sales process. We can create some alerts from that. So it's helpful to see not only are they doing the calls and emails and perhaps the leading indicators of building their pipeline, but are they following the right steps once a deal's in the pipeline? And it's a great reminder for the rep, so that I don't have to get involved with it. But it's also a great way for me to quickly review that pipeline and understand what's going on, and perhaps get back to that coaching, on that piece. So I think there's different things that we're tracking outside of just pipeline. To your question, Laura, and I think it depends on your business. What's the most important, leading or lagging indicator, and for us, having that real time visibility is critical.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Russell.
Oh, sure. So, and one of the things, I'll just give a story, which is we wanted to track, for example, are we capturing best practices and sharing them? And so we said, okay, how many people are creating Loom videos? And then what we did is we tracked, I want to hear the qualitative measurement. Oh, I was able to book these meetings because I listened to Sebastian's way in which he did his cold call from the Loom video. Whoa. Now I can start tracking some of the stories that I'm hearing of how effective some of the tools are using to track, okay, are we getting best practice sharing done? Oh, yeah. It sounds like people are starting to really say, yeah, this helped me and that helped me. So that's one of the ways which we've approached it. Yeah.
Also, like, when we think about initiatives, generally our approach in sales is a challenger approach. So which challenges are actually working in prospecting and driving the conversation and driving the behaviors? And then how do you map those challenges to the product or the solution, not leading with product, but then you can actually test what's getting the opens, what's getting the replies, what's getting the response, what's getting the meetings. Yeah, it can be wrong. You can have an assumption, but like, test them and then whittle down on the top 2 or 3 that are really driving the conversation and hitting a nerve and, creating an emotional connection. I think those are, like, you can't see that in a pipeline.
Yep. Agreed. 100%.
How do you address Zoom fatigue? Folks are tired of video calls. Engagement is diminishing.
What was that? Was that a shot at us, Candace, or this type of event?
We're boring the audience. All right,
Yeah.
everyone do some jumping jacks.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that I have a great answer to that. I mean, I know it's, I think being flexible with folks and being understanding if someone's not on camera every day, and trying to set maybe some expectations around which meetings are important, which ones do, hey, our one-to-ones, let's be on camera. This is an important time for us. Build some rapport, build some, collaboration with each other. Big team meeting with 50 people, maybe not so much. And again, I go back to that purposeful, are you having a meeting that makes sense? Is it necessary? Question yourself on that. What's the real value? I put a big value, and I'm sure, Jason and Russell do the same. It's important to value your reps' time, your team's time. You're taking away their opportunity to prospect or talk to clients. So really, I would challenge yourself, is the meeting important? And is there a good outcome for it?
Yeah.
Really good point.
And I've seen also, Sean, to add to it is non-meeting days.
Yep.
Which is,
I haven't tried that. I've heard of that.
We have a little bit of a luxury at our company because we have a big team in Israel and they take Fridays off. Okay. So then it allows the US team to really focus on the work that they need to get done, either outbound and have less meetings from that. It happens a little bit naturally for us on Fridays, but I do think that it's important to have a carve out that says, okay, it's no meeting time. You do what you need to do and don't need to be on screen. Or like you said, just have a meeting. Okay, everyone, you don't have to have your cameras on.
Sure.
Hey, it's listen, participate in on the audio.
Sure.
Yep. I think another one is, I think a bigger issue is screen time. I feel like with COVID, I was like staring at my screen, doing research, constantly working. I'm in email, I'm in Zoom. Afterwards, watching TV for hours and hours and hours, reading a book on a tablet or whatever that is. Like, I think what I'm encouraging everyone to do is stop looking at a screen, go for a walk, go hiking, go fishing, get outside, kick a ball, do something in the physical world, even if you want to be apart from people. Stop looking at a screen.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I've had a lot of reps that are saying they're going for more walks now. Yeah, they get up, they'll go for half an hour, 45 minutes, and that's made a big difference in their day. So I think that's a great point, Jason.
Yeah, like a walk and talk.
Sure.
I think we're down. Oh, my watch is dying. So 2 more minutes. No more questions. All right. What happened during COVID? What new habit did you actually create that you're going to keep?
I think it's one of the ones we were just talking about. I think trying to find time to detach, because I think for a lot of us being remote, and I think some of our management was surprised that actually we were working more hours than when we were in the office, because it's hard to unhook. It's hard to know when your day is done. Used to have that, okay, I'm leaving the office, maybe I'll check email when I get home, but that was a big, hey, I'm working a lot more, trying to scale that back, keep that balance, have some time to yourself, and stay healthy from that perspective mentally. You need time away. You can't work 24 hours a day.
So balance, find a balance. Russell?
I would say a much higher regard of commute time.
Sure. Yeah.
That right. That it used to be 1 hour commute. That's nothing. Sure. Right now, it's the whole perception's changed.
Sure.
That it's like, oh, whoa, 1 hour commute. Well, hey, let's do this remote. And I think that's gonna stay in place.
Yep.
In terms of the respect and understanding of the personal, it's called sacrifice or time to get where you need to go if you need to be there in person for work purpose.
Sure.
And I think that will stay.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, that 1 hour could be really well used for working out, doing something mindful, meditation, using the Calm app, something like that.
Jason, is that a mention about my weight? Is that a comment about my weight?
Yeah, that's appropriate. Russell, you really need to get on that Nordic track. All right. Well, I think we're about done. Sorry, Asia, I don't think we're going to be able to cover your question with enough time, but feel free to reach out to me or any one of us, and we can talk about that.
Sure.
Easy to find, jason@liveintent.com. All right. I think we're about ready. Troy, want to do the outro?
Yeah. Thank you, Jason, for moderating. Thanks, Russell and Sean. We really appreciate this talk. You know, it's something that all sales teams has been top of mind and is going to continue to be top of mind for probably a long time. So yeah, this is really, really interesting, good stuff. Thank you all for joining. And to the audience, up next, in about 10 minutes, we have scaling RevOps through an agile growth engine. Excuse me. So we will see you all back then. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.